Everybody's favorite bigot, Archie Bunker, had a lot to say, and not always the kindest of words. But we always loved him at the end of the day. Carroll O'Conner, the man behind the iconic New Yorker dad of All in the Family, garnered a reputation and legacy that few actors could ever dream of. He was a celebrated actor, producer, and director with a career on both the big and small screen that spanned over 4 illustrious decades. Although on-screen he was known as a narrow-minded, short-tempered, hypercritical, blue-collar working man, he was in fact a highly educated, lovable, and relatable teddy bear. His off-screen story is sure to be one that will enliven your heart and keep you glued to the edge of your seats. Stick around for the whole video to see how Carroll O'Conner changed the landscape of TV by pushing the envelope as no one else could. Factsverse presents The Inspiring Life of Carroll O'Conner, All in the Family. Before we get started, show us you're a fan of All in the Family by clicking the like button. Then, subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell to see more videos like this. All in the Family broke all the taboos. All in the Family wasn't your typical lighthearted situational comedy. It strayed from the comfortable waters of previous primetime sitcoms like I Love Lucy and Father Knows Best, which displayed a rather conservative take on American culture. Can you imagine seeing Ward and June Cleaver from Leave It to Beaver in the same bed with each other, or discussing hot-button issues like abortion or racism? Archie, Edith, Gloria, and Michael weren't afraid to push the envelope a bit and cover new ground. For the first time in history, audiences heard a toilet flush. Archie made sexual jokes about Edith, the ethics of the Vietnam War were put under the microscope, and even homophobia was dissected in a way that sooner would make the audiences burst out in belly laughs than feel uncomfortable. There existed within the confines of their New York home a certain familiarity that tapped into the cultural zeitgeist of the time and turned social and political issues into fun affairs with progressive moral undertones. A poster family of cultural change. The 60s were a time of cultural change, political upheaval, and a period where the status quo was being put on the operating table. Carroll O'Conner perfectly captured the spirit of a conservative from the Nixon era. He was staunch in his beliefs, and if you didn't think exactly as he did, then you were nothing but a dingbat, as he often called Edith his sweet yet naive wife, or a meathead, his favorite disparaging nickname for his left-leaning liberal son-in-law. Gloria, his 20-something feminist daughter, had a splash of his short-fused temperament. Unlike him, though, she was triggered by issues of social injustice, especially when it was directed at women. The whole family was always at odds with each other, but at the end of the day, no matter how much they drove each other bonkers, they always had a deep love for one another. Carroll wasn't confused as to who Archie was. Roles such as the one Carroll was lucky enough to find in Archie were once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. Even with that realization, he wasn't confused about what kind of man Archie was. In a 1972 interview with the Los Angeles Times, Carroll opined, "Archie's a loser." He went on to describe how people just like his character could be found in every nook and cranny all across America. The nation's faith-like obsession with success gave birth to a certain breed of conservatism that emboldened a sense of moral superiority. He called it fine people rationale, or the notion that many have that all the finest members of society had to be of the conservative mindset. This notion pits people against each other. If all the good folks are conservative, and conservatism is the end-all be-all superior worldview, then some people are simply closer to some idealized concept of perfection. Archie's prejudicial character was in fact modeled after the show's creator Norman Lear's father. Lear expressed a deep, resounding love for his father, but noted he came from a bygone era where prejudices and bias were much more pronounced and people were burdened with bigotry that was inherited from their parents, and their parents' parents, and so on. It was a generational sickness. Archie encapsulated this trope and shined a light on much-needed social change that needed to happen in the Western world. Deep down inside, Archie had a heart. Carroll mused of his formative years that he had heard racial epithets and discrimination in the world outside of his childhood house, but never inside of it. His family wouldn't put up with that kind of talk. By playing the role of the problematic Archie, Carroll wasn't attempting to normalize intolerance and bigotry, but he was trying to bring it to the table and start a cultural discussion about these issues because, after all, deep down inside, Archie was a human. He was relatable. We all knew someone with his traits and opinions, and at the heart of these people was the familiar element of human love. Archie wasn't necessarily a bad man, he just regurgitated backward views that he no doubt inherited from his parents, and from a pervasive way of thinking that lurked in his generation. If Archie could be humanized, then perhaps Archie, like people in the real world, could be reached, and maybe, just maybe, we could create tangible change and put to rest these sorts of hateful prejudices. Archie deeply loved his family, but he feared the unknown and made every attempt to push it out of his mind when something he was uncomfortable with came into his bubble. He knee-jerk rejected change because the old way is the best way. Throughout the show's seasons, though, cracks of his humanity let light through, and there were moments where he genuinely opened up to the views of others. From humble beginnings. John Carroll O'Conner was born in New York City on a muggy August afternoon in 1924. His father was Edward O'Conner and worked as a lawyer, and his mother was Elise O'Conner, and she was a housewife. He lived a quiet, normal life as a child. Both his brothers became doctors, but he wanted something different for his life. He just didn't know what it was yet. Carroll had ambitions to join the Navy to take part in World War II, but was rejected, so he went after the next best thing in his mind and joined the Merchant Marines. After serving, he decided it would be a good deal to pursue some kind of education, so he enrolled at the University of Montana. He would later transfer to the University College of Dublin to finish up his schooling, while he was assisting his brother Hugh, who needed help getting into med school. While he was receiving his education, he met his future wife, Nancy Fields, and when she moved to Ireland, they quickly wed. It was around this time he began to do some acting on the side for the university. When he returned to America to finish up his master's, he found himself a role on the off-Broadway rendition of Ulysses, and subsequently followed that up with another off-Broadway adaptation of the theatrical performance Big Knife. The 50s and 60s would be good to O'Conner. His stage acting would soon land him roles in feature films. He starred in several big-name flicks, such as Cleopatra in 1963 and Kelly's Heroes in 1970, and a handful of notable roles on television shows like Bonanza and I Spy, before landing his defining role in 1971 with All in the Family. The lines begin to blur. When an actor embodies a part in the way O'Conner did with Archie Bunker, the world begins to associate them with their on-screen persona. And sometimes their sense of self-identity begins to suffer. People would address Carroll as Archie on the street all the time. This really irked him. He was nothing like the judgmental simpleton he played on screen. He was an intellectual, someone with a broad scope of understanding of the human condition. He was friendly and full of heart and spirit. To be constantly compared to Archie was frustrating for him. Life goes on. When All in the Family ended in 1979, Carroll would reprise his role in the spin-off Archie Bunker's Place. The show enjoyed only a fraction of All in the Family's popularity, but still managed to stay on the air for several seasons. He then laid low for the next decades, starring in only a few TV movies and specials before returning to television in 1992 with the show In the Heat of the Night, in which he starred as Officer Bill Gillespie, unraveling a series of murders and crimes in Sparta, Mississippi. Carroll didn't care much for the direction of the show at first and put up a bit of a protest. Directorial changes were made and the show quickly improved, and ratings subsequently followed suit. The show went on to enjoy several more seasons thanks to his artistic direction. He even found time to create a special part for his son Hugh as Officer Lonnie Jameson. Carroll was always a family man, and unlike his character Archie in All in the Family, he was openly capable of expressing his loving support for his wife and child. He was a good man, a man of integrity with an uncompromising moral compass. Tragedy strikes. Carroll's son Hugh O'Conner battled drug addiction for much of his adult life, and sadly in 1995 he would lose that battle when he took his own life. Carroll was shocked and rattled by this loss, and would spend the rest of his life raising awareness to the perils of drug addiction. He would appear in numerous anti-drug PSAs in the hopes that he could use his image to curtail the nation's growing substance abuse problem. He would even push through legislation in his home state of California that would help victims of drug abuse to effectively sue drug dealers for reimbursement and treatment. This act would come to be known as the Drug Dealer Civil Liability Act. He would never forget his son's untimely death. He told Larry King on CNN, "There isn't a day I don't think of him and want him back and miss him, and I'll feel that way until I'm not here anymore." Carroll valued education deeply. He fully understood the value of a solid education, and he never forgot where he came from. That's exactly why he returned to his home state and endowed the University of Montana with a $1 million contribution to their alma mater, matching a federal grant. The university showed their thanks by naming a regional research facility after him. He was a valued member of the community, and the school reflected the popular sentiment towards him by showing him their enduring thanks and support. As another token of his thanks to the university that helped launch his career, he taught acting classes there until declining health eventually started to take a toll. He had suffered from heart issues for years, and despite several surgeries, he continued to suffer from complications. All good things come to an end. On June 21, 2001, Carroll O'Conner passed away from complications of diabetes and heart troubles. Although he may no longer be with us, his spirit lives on. There very well may be a little bit of Archie Bunker in all of us. Hopefully we can learn from the lessons taught by his character and turn away from prejudice to embrace a philosophy of acceptance and love. Carroll will always be remembered by his friends, fans, and family alike for being one of show business's greatest actors to ever grace the screen and stage. He made us laugh, he made us love, and most importantly, he made us think. That wraps up our look at Carroll O'Conner. He transcended his on-screen character of Archie Bunker and no doubt inspired change in the minds of people he touched. He reached outside of the TV screen into our living rooms and became a familiar part of our worlds. Let's honor his memory by remembering what he stood for. Now we'd like to hear from you. What's your favorite memory of Archie Bunker on All in the Family? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to Factsverse for more videos like this.